Hello crafty friends, I'm Lien from Studio Kato and I'm so happy you're joining me again today because it's a very exciting video. I am using some new products from Pigment Craft Company, or well, they're not a new release, but they're new to me. And they are available at the Seize the Stamp shop in Switzerland. I will actually have a discount code down below that you can use to get 10% off your order, and if you use it, you also support me because it's an affiliate discount code, so I also get a small percentage of the sale. Today I am using this wonderful mom stamp set, and it has this very dainty frame that is going to be pretty hard to stamp if you don't leave it on the acetate. Believe me, I tried, and then I spent 20 minutes trying to line it back up again with the acetate sheet. It is a very flimsy stamp, which just happens when it's so very dainty, and therefore it's just easier to leave it on the acetate, pull off all the other stamp sets, and that's how I stamped it. So I adhered it to the inside of my MISTI door, just with some purple tape, and then I stamped it in Versamark ink onto Canson Montval 200 GSM watercolor cardstock. I'm also stamping one of the corner flowers 4 more times onto this scrap piece of cardstock, again using that Versamark ink. There's a die included for the, in the coordinating die set, there is a die included for the entire frame, but also for the corner flowers separately, and I want to use those as a few embellishments on my card. It's going to be a pretty busy card, and that's why I wanted to limit my color palette. Now the first color I'm going to use is some gold. This is the Brass Metallic embossing powder by Wow. It's really beautiful. It's my favorite embossing powder, or my favorite gold embossing powder. It's a really pretty gold. It has some sort of pink shine to it. It's very subtle. It's definitely not copper or anything like that, but it's not a yellow gold, and I really like it. I heat set that for the frame and also for those 4 separate flowers. Now you can see that the 4 separate flowers are stamped a little bit messily. It couldn't be helped. Or well, it could have if I had cleaned my stamp every single time in between, but I am too lazy to do that. It turned out fine because these dies cut really close to the outline. Now I wanted to add some leaves or some foliage to this card as well, and I am using the Curvy Foliage die from Pinkfresh Studio, and I'm using some Pigment Craft Co inks to add some color to those. I am using 2 colors, and I'm not familiar enough with the ink palette yet to know the names, but I will make sure to list those below. These are available at the Seize the Stamps shop as well, and they are gorgeous. And one of my favorite things to do with these is paint with them. This is how you can color your images in the same colors that you used for your ink blending or for your stamping even. So this just keeps everything nice and cohesive. You know, I like my cards to look like everything belongs together, and this is a great and easy way to do that. So just stamp the ink pad onto a slick surface. This just happens to be a laminated sheet of white cardstock. Then I spray some water into it, and I just pick it up to paint with it. Now, inks do react differently. The Pinkfresh Studio inks do react a little bit differently than the Pigment Craft Co inks, and they also all behave very differently from watercolor. So I highly recommend you try this out before you just add it to your projects. The results are always fun, but they just might not be what you expect if you don't try them out first. Inks are a little bit more staining than watercolor, so they are a little bit harder to blend out, but overall it's really fun to paint with them. Now there's a bunch of fun stamped sentiments included in this wonderful mom stamp set, and there are coordinating dies for most of these. Now I chose to just use the coordinating dies for the block letter mom, and I just cut all the letters out 4 times out of some thick white cardstock, layered them together with the Barely Art Precision Craft Glue, and then I wanted to add some embossing powder, but because it's stark white cardstock, I was worried about my edges not being green, so I just colored the die cuts with a dark green alcohol marker, and that just makes my life a little bit easier for embossing later. To add some embossing powder and some shine and sparkle to these sentiments, or to these letters, I am using the Wow Ultra Slow Drying Clear Embossing ink, and I am sprinkling on this gorgeous, luscious gold and green embossing powder that I totally forgot the name of. It's something with jewels. It's very, very beautiful. I will make sure to list the name below as well. I think it's actually part of a trio of embossing powders, and I will list the trio as well if that's the case. Now, to put this card together, this was quite a journey because I played around with the elements a lot. This took me a lot longer than I'm showing in this video. So I die cut the frame with the coordinating die, and then I backed it with a piece of cardboard. That's the easy part, and I am just gluing that onto my card base. Now, I did also add a piece of that same watercolor cardstock that I used for all my elements to my card base so that all the whites would match. I love it when my whites match. So yeah, I did take that little extra step for that. This part of making the foliage background look nice definitely took the longest. I just used 2 of those die cuts, but I cut them apart and rearranged them, and I tried to not have them overlap because I did stack them up so they have dimension to them. I stacked up these tiny, tiny die cuts. I think I backed them with 2 extra layers of thick white cardstock each, so they do have some dimension to them, and I wanted to add the mom sentiment on top, so I didn't want the foliage to overlap, so I was really careful about where I cut everything. I die cut the tiny little flowers out as well. I then can cut them apart however I need, and just arrange them around and on top of the sentiment. And as some accent pieces, I am using these gold pearls by Pinkfresh Studio, or gold metallic pearls even. They also have some matte pearls, and I just got those, but just too late for this card, and I think they would have been even prettier on this card. Now, overall, I only used 3 colors on this card. I used gold, I used pink, or that peachy pink at least, and I used some green, and I think it just works so beautifully together. So I wanted to finish it off with a beautiful envelope as well. So I folded one out of cream cardstock with my We Memory Keepers 123 punch board, and I again pulled all of the stamps off of the acetate except for the frame. I added folded purple tape to the back of it to adhere it temporarily to the inside of my MISTI, and that way I can stamp it very easily. This time I am stamping it in that same glow ink. I just remembered what it was called. That lightest pink ink from the Pigment Craft Co line is called Glow, and it's stunning. It's one of my favorite inks now. I have used it a ton since I got it. I wasn't going to send this card because it's for my mom, so I was just going to give it to her in person, and that way I could just stamp one of the sentiments that says Mama on the front of the envelope as well to address it. And that finishes off my envelope. I embossed that sentiment in the same gold as I used on the rest of my card, and I am so happy with how this card turned out. I love the soft peach and the green combo. That gold just finishes it off really elegantly, I think. It's definitely a card style that is not totally up my alley, but I really like how it turned out, and I had a lot of fun making it. Now, in total, I always forget to mention this, even though I set out this YouTube channel with the goal of mentioning this every video, but in total, this card took me almost a an hour and a half to make. So it did take me quite a while, but I think it was worth it in the end. I hope you liked the card and I hope you liked the video. If you did, make sure to leave a thumbs up on this video and leave your thoughts in the comments below. I would love to read them. You can also subscribe to my channel. Definitely check out the Seize the Stamp shop, and I hope to see you next time.